every second, we'll have about 130 devices connected to the internet. So by the time this panel is over, there'll be about 275,000 new devices connected to the internet that weren't previously there. So that's just sort of a really small, easy way to intro what IoT is. But I want to let our panelists talk a little bit more about how they're seeing it from their perspectives. On my left, we have Amy Gaskins. She's the director of the Big Data Project at NOAA. And to my right, we have Marty Trevino, who has a really long title. I'm going to read only part of it. He's with the Department of Defense, and he's a senior scientist there. He is also Dr. Marty Trevino, as I learned earlier. And he works for the NSA in his day job. So his experience is probably a little different from many of y'all's. So Marty, what's IoT to you?
Wow. Can you hear me? Okay. What's the IoT to me? Well, the IoT to me is a seminal question for our time. How we approach our conceptualization of the IoT, I think, is absolutely critical for the future, because how we conceptualize something is how we individually and collectively come to grips with things and are able to set paths forward. And I think we have challenges around the IoT. And first and foremost is the way we conceptualize it. We tend to think of the IoT tactically versus strategically. We tend to think of it in vertical structures, silos. We tend to approach it conventionally and with linear and simplistic thinking, if you will. You can start with the name, the IoT. While some would say, well, it's encompassing, right? Covers a lot of things, the Internet of Things. At the end of the day, it is a moniker of conventional thinking. Of linear and simplistic associations with things. And when you look at the frameworks for the IoT, you see that. Machine, auto, home, wearables, even smart wearables, that type of thing. Those type of frameworks are useful, but largely so from a marketing or development perspective, from a very tactical product perspective. We need to begin thinking about the IoT very strategically as a nation-state problem, specifically as a nation-state competitiveness problem or challenge. A couple of years ago, the German government paid a national think tank a couple $1 million to do a very extensive study for Germany and to see, is the IoT for real, and what consequences would it have both for German industry and society. And I know the researcher personally, and they delivered a very comprehensive, well-done study of possible impacts of technology for the next 20 years. And that set about a coordinated series of actions by the German government to position Germany nationally to take advantage of the developing ecosystem. And this is critical because the very fabric of society is changing because of the IoT. It's changing before our eyes. I mean, I have a Fitbit in my pocket. I have a cell phone over there with 37 apps on it. I will interact with hundreds of different devices or applications on my way home tonight. In a few years, we'll interact with thousands per day. The estimate of 100 and X number of things being connected to the internet every minute, that could be light. Right? Estimates range between 29 and 50 billion by 2020. 50 billion is probably a little high, but we could see 200 to 300 devices, new devices connected to the internet every minute. So when you say, what is the Internet of Things? It can be a lot of things, but to me, it is a nation-state competitiveness challenge. And we have to come to grips with those challenges, not only from a product and linear vertical construct perspective, but from a much more strategic perspective, because we have challenges as a developed nation that developing nations do not have.
I love it when smart people explain complicated subjects so much better than I can.
Do you want a layman to explain it?
Please.
So I would say that this is kind of the tweetable version, but I would consider the Internet of Things a whole bunch of everyday devices or objects that are connected to the internet and are communicating back and forth. So that's kind of the Twitter byte version of what it is.
Solid. Now what's going on at NOAA? Y'all doing some pretty good stuff there, right? You got the Big Data Project, which I'd love to talk more about. But.
So I just want to ask the audience, how many of you have ever heard of NOAA? Okay, that's good, because we're in DC. So when I think about NOAA, I think of NOAA as really one of the IoT agencies. Whether you know it or not, we have tons of devices that are transmitting constantly. We've got satellites in the sky. We have, buoys in the water. We have seals with little things on their heads that are transmitting all the time. They're so cute. Google them. If not, I'll tweet a picture of one later. And, Doppler radar, all this stuff, hydrophones in our sanctuaries. So we're collecting data all the time, not just about weather, but about our oceans and our environment. And we're learning things constantly with a relatively small budget compared to other agencies. So you get a lot of bang for your buck from NOAA because of our IoT capability.
And you guys are trying to share more of it.
We are, yeah. So I'm going to give a plug for my own project, which is the Big Data Project. Has anyone heard of it in here? Okay, woo. Thank you. I appreciate that. So what we're trying to do is test the economic value of NOAA's data by working with a series of cloud providers. So we're working with Amazon, Google, IBM, Microsoft, and the Open Commons Consortium. They're investing their cloud infrastructure for us to put our data out in the cloud and then provide it to the public and sell either products that are created by our cloud providers or third-party vendors, or sell the ancillary products that go with the cloud, like computing cycles and things like that. And see what the value of that data is. We're under the Department of Commerce, and we think that there's a lot of value that's not being fully realized from NOAA's data, particularly in the private sector. A lot of people think we're the National Weather Service, and we're so much more than that. So we've already put out our NextRad, which is Doppler radar. So if you're a weather junkie, that's really great. But we're starting to see value driven in the private sector through economies of scale. They can compute on the entire archive, which is almost 300 terabytes of data, which is a lot. And our entire archive of NOAA data consists of almost 120 petabytes. So if you're a techie, that's a lot. So there's so much opportunity for us in this project. And the one thing we really want to realize is to run this project at no net cost to the government, which is huge. So everybody's watching us now. So I have to succeed. I just came on board a few months ago. So tell your friends to come look at some NOAA data.
So Amy's point of view is very optimistic, right? There's a lot of opportunity out there for IoT to take advantage of technology and this massive amount. How many petabytes did you say?
So right now we have 120 petabytes in our archive. By 2020, it's going to be 160. So it's growing
a lot,
exponentially.
Right?
And we're about to launch another satellite in October.
My dad back on the farm would say that's a metric shit ton of data, I think. But I want to switch gears a little bit and just from our other point of view here. When we have these kind of events, we'll talk a little bit beforehand and just shoot the breeze a little bit. And one thing that caught my ears from Marty was this singularity, this idea that soon there's maybe a point of no return or a point of not understanding the world anymore the way we do now because of an abundance of data. So I want to get your perspective on that because that is also another very potential ramification from the IoT.
Yeah, so familiar with Kurzweil's concept of the singularity of technology around artificial intelligence, right? So he still issues a weekly technology report. He's proven to be inaccurate thus far, but a few decades we'll see. He might still prove to be correct. In just conversations with other people around the IoT and the level of connectivity that we're reaching, it is just my opinion. But a hypothesis that we will see a singularity of connectivity, and we will see that in the next 10 years. We will cross a threshold when we hit 40, 45 million, possibly 50 billion devices worldwide, and we will cross into something else. The world will become something else. The concepts that we live with today will become something different. And by that I mean, today the concept of on and off net means something. Turn your phone off, I'm going off net for a while. I'm getting away with somebody for the weekend and I'm not taking my phone. The concept of on and off net will fade away. There will be so many devices, you will be on net all the time, and it's almost that way now. But we will cross a threshold where data paths are no longer prescriptive, where we cannot trace data more than 1 to 2 degrees of separation. We simply don't know where it's going. We don't know how it's being used, by whom it's being used, and for what it's being used. In this, after this event horizon, if you will, people, device, application, whether machine to machine, person to machine, etc., will operate absolutely seamlessly. It's almost there now, but it will be on steroids at that point. You will literally just be on net all the time, and data will be being transmitted about you even when you sleep. And it's that way today. Anyone have one of the Fitbit devices for sleep? Do you see when you get a good night's sleep, right? It's transmitting data now. Well, and if you go to sleep with your speakers on, half the speakers are transmitting data right now, exactly what song you're playing when you go to sleep. We're reaching that point. But it is my opinion, we will hit a singularity of connectivity, and it will cross over into something fundamentally different than what it is today.
How are we going to manage the Internet of Things? And for Marty, how are we going to secure it?
How are we going to manage it? That's a good question.
Right, from the sensors up in space that you guys have,
Yeah, so
hydrophones,
we
ocean.
manage all of that ourselves. But when we talk about people's devices, individual things like when your thermostat's talking to your fridge, is talking to Amazon to order stuff, it's a good question of how, because there's no, right now, as far as I know, there's no one platform, right, that they all run on. That would be incredibly hard to implement. So it's a good question. I don't know that I have a really good answer for you. I'll have to think about that and maybe tweet something to you. But
I think the company name should be the Singularity.
I think that name is Google. Don't tell them I said that.
I do have a good question for you. If we don't get our act together around standards, interfaces, et cetera, we're not going to secure it. And if we're not careful, we're blinded today by epistemic blind spots around opportunities and threats because of the way we approach it. If we don't get our act together, we may look back years from now on today with reverence. The day when things ran and the lights turned on when you wanted, et cetera, et cetera.
That nation-state competitiveness angle is really important. And our next panel is going to talk a little bit more about policy standards from Congress that are going to hopefully help shape those issues forward. But talk about that for a hot second, because I like that angle.
Well, so when you start conceptualizing, from a very strategic scale, right? Nation-state competitiveness. The World Economic Forum defines nation-state competitiveness for every country on the planet, and technology is one of 12 dimensions for that. The IoT is an increasingly important part of that one dimension. We do have stellar examples out there. In 2014, the British government, Ministry of Science, I believe, issued a very well done report. It's free and available on the internet, of a strategic approach by England to the IoT. And it very specifically calls out, everything from standards, et cetera, et cetera. One of the most interesting ones, I was talking to Frank earlier, it calls out the monopolization of data. It's not just about things failing and securing, it's also about ensuring freedom. And if we're not careful, we'll see a monopolization of data, which is the exact opposite of what people like NOAA are working for. By large data marts, we tend to view government. We view government with tremendous suspicion, how they're using data, how they're correlating it, et cetera, and we should. But equally so, we need to be looking at for-profit industry, because today you have a dozen data mart companies around the United States that aggregate massive amounts of data, massive, and they have little to no oversight. And it's insufficient from a nation-state perspective to allow a monopolization of data. And we can't just accept statements with good intent at their core. Well, we're not going to do anything bad to you because we're a great company. It doesn't work that way. Sorry, when money's at stake, we can't allow that.
So that was one of the things we brought up in the tweet chat, and we were talking about securing things. And one of the things I brought up with, and this applies particularly to for-profit companies, is the ability of users to own their data. If you're the user of that device, that you would be the person who is the primary owner of that data, and that it couldn't be sold to a company like Axiom, who are these large aggregators and sell to other large companies so they can track your usage for marketing purposes and things like that, that we tend to think is very benign. But I came from a data science background. Before that, I worked in the intelligence community as a targeter for counterterrorism operations. So I know what happens when you link together lots of data sets to try and target people, whether it's to sell them something or whether it's to do kinetic operations on them. So, when you think that the Catalina thing spitting out coupons at you at the grocery store is doing a really good service to you, you really have to think about what's going on behind the scenes in order to get that.
And y'all ever seen Minority Report? Anybody? You know that scene where he walks in the mall and like there's all those ads catered right to him, like for the things he did that day? Like, that's what I think when I think of Internet of Things. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry to interject.
We're getting there.
So I like the idea of a smart, connected home. But Marty, with your NSA background, Amy, DIA background, what are some of the things that should not be connected or be smart?
Well,
A
that's-
pacemaker.
Yeah.
If I had one.
Well, so but my researcher hat. We look at that stuff in think tanks, and it all comes down to the person, right? It's going to come down to the family. What risk are you willing to take? And what most of us sign on to. We take an app and we just say yes to it. And when you take a look, it's downloading everything. I mean everything. I'd like to give you an example of how powerful the Internet of Things is. So you say, what are we willing to accept? In 2007, the Journal of Economics published a study on 4 fishing villages in India. And it exemplifies how powerful and how much opportunity is out there with the IoT. Developed countries have equal opportunity, it's just different. But when we talk about are we willing to take something, so fishing villages in India, 4 of them, very poor, people earn $2.50 a day. They saw massive fluctuations in the price of fish every day, okay? What that means for a family that earns $2.50 a day is when you get a large fluctuation, you can't walk 5 miles to the next village because by the time you get there, the fish is sold out. You don't get food. You don't get protein. Your children do not eat protein, which is hard enough being an adult and going to work hungry, but brain development, body development, overall health is dramatically affected by this. The Indian government gave everybody cell phones. Boom, everybody has 3G service all of a sudden. And within weeks, what happened was amazing. The price of fish, the range by which it fluctuated on a daily basis, shrank from like 5 standard deviations to 1. Well, what this meant was people could now plan, and they could afford protein almost every day. And something amazing happened because of those cell phones and the device, all the parts and pieces to them. The price of fish fell 4%. And get this, the people going to market were able to distribute their loads because they talked to each other, and their profits rose 7%. And for the first time ever, children got protein 6 and 7 days a week. That's a developed country. That's an developing country. For developing countries, our challenges are different, but the opportunities are the same. So we talk about security, we talk about these things. We have to come to grips with them, and we have to come to grips with them from a strategic scale because the opportunities are beyond awesome.
I'd also like to take a moment to thank Amazon Web Services and Intel for supporting this event this evening. Without them, we would not be able to host them, so we're really pleased that they've done that for us tonight. And they'd like to continue the conversation at their summit. They have AWS as a public sector summit on June 20th and 21st, so please look out for information about that and continue the conversation tonight here.